How you doing? It's Dana Hanson. I have another daily word from Psalm 106. One of the things that happens in the book of Psalms, we read some Psalms that do like a reenactment or retelling of the Exodus. So the Exodus is the central event in the life of God's people in the Old Testament, and we see it several times in the Psalms where there's a retelling, and it's always a little bit different. I mean, this was not like everybody's reading from the same page and saying the same thing. And in Psalm 106, it was interesting to me because it comes up with a name that I wasn't real familiar with. The name is Phinehas. Now, I know Phineas and Ferb, the cartoon, but I didn't recall a Phinehas. And so here's what Psalm 106 says. They yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor. Now, Baal is the pagan god of fertility and so forth, and the people of Peor, that would be the people of Midian. They would be the Midianites in a country outside of the, where the Israelites are going to settle. And so they're doing bad things. They yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor, ate sacrifices offered to lifeless gods. That's one of those Hebrew poetry, one line, and an idea then is rhymed with another idea. It's not here. It's not rhyming with word sounds. It's rhyming with events or things that are actions that are being taken. So they yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor and ate sacrifices, which says more specifically what they were doing, offered to lifeless gods, and that would be Baal. And so that's the Hebrew parallelism, or I think that's a term proper term you'd use for that. They aroused the Lord's anger by their wicked deeds, and a plague broke out among them. In the Old Testament, in particular, we see that when you have plagues and stuff like that, usually that's coming from God, who is displeased. And sure enough, here comes Phinehas. But Phinehas stood up and intervened, and the plague was checked. The plague stopped because of this one guy. Well, what did he do, and what's happening? The psalmist doesn't tell us. But it does. We do hear this was credited to him as righteousness. So this is a right way of God. He's serving God in the right way for endless generations to come. Well, I'm sorry, Phinehas, I didn't remember you. So I am a generation that's it's not endless afterwards, but I remember you now. All right. So what does this mean specifically? It sounds kind of just real cloudy in terms of what actually happened. Well, go to Numbers 25 and you find out. The people were, in particular, the men were going to the Moabite women, and they were having affairs, they were having sexual relations and so forth, and eating food sacrificed to their gods, which is a huge no-no. I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me. They got to remember that one. That's number one commandment. But then they also, it says, and not only were they eating the food sacrificed, but they were worshiping Baal themselves. They had done that before, and they got in a lot of trouble again and again. And so here we have it. Now, Phinehas shows up. Then an Israelite man brought into the camp a Midianite woman right before the eyes of Moses and the whole assembly of Israel, while they were weeping at the entrance to the tent of meeting. So they're weeping because God has declared judgment on them. And then some Israelite guy comes walking in with his girlfriend from Moab, and they're going to go in their tent and have sexual relations. But they walk right by. It's like, in your face, Moses, in your face, people of Israel, I'm going to do whatever I want. Not a very good idea, especially if you got Phinehas around. When Phinehas, son of Eleazar was the son of Aaron. Okay, so that means Phinehas is Aaron, the brother of Moses' grandson. So he's Moses' great nephew or grandnephew. Okay. When Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw this, he left the assembly, took a spear in his hand. Oh, here's a spear. Followed the Israelite into the tent. He drove the spear into both of them, right through the Israelite man and into the woman's stomach. Yuck. Well, that really put an end to at least that guy breaking God's law and breaking God's ways. But then we're told, then the plague against the Israelites was stopped. So God no longer sent the plague. Now, what does God say happened? Numbers 25, I continue. The Lord said to Moses, Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, has turned my anger away from the Israelites. So, we're not, God's not advising you to go stab people with spears, because we now are living under the law of Christ and the ways of Jesus, and his ways were to seek the good of your enemy and so forth. So it's much a different experience for us. However, this is what this does tell us is very serious. God is very serious about us not worshiping false idols, which can be many different things, right? And he says, Phinehas, what he does, turns God's anger away from the Israelites. Then God says, since he was as zealous for my honor among them as I am, I did not put an end to them in my zeal. Therefore tell him I'm making a covenant of peace with him, he and his descendants. All right, so what do I get out of that? I get a lot out of that. First, Phinehas, man, tough dude. Becomes high priest himself later. Leads in Israel with the Israelites. What I also get is that sentence, that phrase, that verse, that kind of haunts me, because it says, since he was as zealous for my honor among them as I am. So a human being, in this case, is capable of having as much zeal for God and God's ways as God himself has. That's remarkable. And yet, there certainly is a human being later who is foreshadowed in this story, the one who gives his life. And the way he does that is he destroys sin, death, and the power of the devil on the cross. Yep. And Jesus takes the spear himself. And so, just all kind of thoughts and just, it's like, wow. So thanks, Phinehas, for reminding us once again how amazing it is that God is so close to us that we might have zeal for his ways as much as he does. Whew, I'm going to think about that for about 1,000,000 years. All right, thanks.